World-class lessons from the real estate industry's top 1%, empowering agents to think bigger and do more to create life by design. Get access to exclusive interviews with top producing real estate professionals. Listen in as we talk about their journey in the business, best practices, and lessons learned. Hosted by KIRO, NASRALAH, and John SCIPIONE.
I mean, one thing that we always say in our office is just action is better than perfection, right?
This is Light It Up with Lighthouse Residential.
Welcome back to another episode of Light It Up podcast. Super excited about today's guest. We have with us here Chris Gallo from New Jersey Lenders. Chris ranks in the top 5 in the country in mortgage bankers, closed just shy of 3,000 units in 2021 and over $1 billion in volume. So some crazy numbers there. Chris, super excited to have you here. Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Listen, I appreciate the invite and looking forward to it. That's for sure.
Of course. You know, KIRO and I always try to have people who, bring tremendous value to the platform. A lot of times it ends up being other realtors, other team leaders, investors, but it's interesting for us to have somebody who's not necessarily doing what we do every single day. Again, I think people will have, pull away a lot of value. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, my pleasure for sure.
Awesome. I think this time is also appropriate given the fact that rates have skyrocketed in the last month. The timing couldn't be even better. Being the number one lender in New Jersey and top 5 in the nation, I'm just curious to know really like how you started and where everything is at right now.
Sure. I mean, so I'll keep it high level from where I started and kind of want to bore you guys with all the details, but started about 20 years ago, back when, rates were obviously a little bit higher and the market was a bit different just based on the mortgage products that were available. But at the time when I started, we started in a time when cold calling was something that was still very, very popular, and people still picked up their home phones and stuff like that. So I started at a company. It was a broker, basically cold calling. They gave you a list of names and numbers, and go ahead, call. See if you could help these people out. See if they can save money. So it didn't give you much. They were really just giving you kind of a name, a number, an address, and the fact that they had a mortgage. Whether you can benefit them or not, that was kind of for you to figure out. So started kind of at, I would say, the lowest level possible, but I feel like at that time it was the best way to start. And I learned a lot of the values I've used to kind of grow my business from then to now, just based off, once again, having to continue to try, continue to pound the phones, continue to not give up and not get discouraged when people hang up on you or just don't want to talk to you, because that was the most common response we were getting. And then occasionally you'd get someone who wanted to speak and then you have to figure out if there's even a benefit, which was a whole nother level of it. So you talk to them now and is there a benefit? Sure, you could find, and then you find a benefit. So there's a lot of time spent on the phones and just kind of mastering the phone and kind of scripts and kind of doing what realtors do today. I know a lot of realtors are doing that. And, so I could definitely relate when I see people doing that. I think it's very valuable. I think you can learn a tremendous amount, A, about the client, and just B, about, doing the job the right way and kind of addressing the points that people tend to leave out or don't address, and they just go for the big kill. Oh, do you want a list? No, address the reasons, address why, or just why they want to refinance or what can benefit them from refinancing. So that's kind of where I started, and it's kind of evolved over the years. Obviously we went through a little bit of a financial crisis, which definitely changed the way the business was for many years, and and still is changed for the most part to kind of where we are today. But you asked kind of a loaded question with kind of rates and where you started, so that's a lot. But I'll tell you one thing. I mean, go ahead, John.
No, you said a lot there. I mean, I think a lot of people who sort of, came up in the business, whether it's on the real estate side or on the lending side, sort of cut their teeth by making a lot of those outbound calls. Yep. And I think, there's something to be said. I think by learning, to prospect that way and to market yourself that way and to go through all of that, like ongoing rejection, it thickens your skin, right? I mean, I see a lot of like younger realtors right now come into the industry and come into the business, and they're like, what leads are you going to give us? How many leads do we get a day? And how are you going to make my phone ring? And it's just sort of like, well, dude, you don't even know what we did to sort of like, try to generate the business from the beginning, right?
Yep.
Sure. I mean, you have, as you said, I mean, you have to start somewhere. You have to slowly grow a book of business, and over time, that's what we've done. I mean, there's still clients that I cold called years ago, and years ago, that I've still worked with up until last year, the year before, whether it be just wanting to do a refinance or buying a second home, or maybe their son's buying a home now. Yeah. So, to me, that relationship that you grow at that level, I think, is so valuable, and then kind of just managing it over time is the annuity that this business gives. I mean, your book of business is something that you could give to somebody, but you grew it, and people want you. People want to talk to you. So, one of the cores of my business has always been customer service and kind of, the customer. And a lot of my referrals come from customers. A lot of previous customers, that's where a lot of what I get, and previous business is kind of all grown from that. And I do work with a lot of realtors as well, but for the most part, someone may say, oh, you did 900 purchases in 2021. How many realtors do you work with? And to be honest with you, when it comes to a core group of realtors, I don't work with 20, 30, 40, 60 different realtors. I probably work with 10 or 12 good realtors who know what they do, who know how to do the job. And then the other part of my business is a lot of referrals. And once again, I kind of turn back to that core group of people that, once again, cold calling, growing that relationship, and keeping that relationship for life. I mean, that's in this business, once again, if you're going to put that time in, you better, you got to maintain it too. You got to keep it and keep it in good standing, so to say.
Yeah. One of the things that I've always admired about you, and like how I see you maintaining your business, is that, like, I was telling KIRO today, like, as we were talking about some of the questions we wanted to go through with you, is like, I feel like when our clients are done with a transaction after working with me, I feel like a lot of them would say, yeah, he did a good job. Yeah, he did what he was supposed to do. I'm happy with the transaction, and that's that. But I feel like a lot of your clients afterwards would be like, holy shit, you got to work with Chris. He got me the best deal. Like, and I don't know if you're a fan of Tony Robbins, but like Tony Robbins always says, like, you need to maintain like raving fans. You need to build raving fans. And I think that that's something that you've been really good at, is that when a client is done with their transaction and they've gotten their loan through you, they literally become a raving fan. And they're like, Chris got me the best rate. He told me it was going to be 30-day closing. It was 29 days. And, he did what he was supposed to do. So can you just talk about that a little bit, and just
how do you do that?
Yeah. How do you get it so that a client afterwards is like, you have to go to him?
Yep.
You've made me a raving fan. And I think that's why we've done so much business together, is because I end up going out there and spreading the news.
Sure. No. And I think, obviously, once again, great question. I think a lot of it has to do with just, managing the client's expectations, right? I mean, that's easy, right? Anyone dealing in customer service 101, managing customers' expectations, right? But being transparent, and then at the same time, just being knowledgeable of the situation, right? So if you have somebody who, once again, has to close in 30 days, has this, has that, just being aware and being involved, where what I've seen in my business is, as teams grow and people do more volume, they add people, which is normal, right? In order to grow, you need to add, right? So you add people, but I think out of the 3,000 people I closed last year, I think I talked to every single one of them, and I think there's something there that kind of lasts with them. So just knowing and understanding, like I said, figuring out what the punch list is. What are the issues? Everyone's got issues, whether it be they got to close quick, or they got to do this, or they have that, or this, whatever it may be. And I just think being upfront about it. And listen, I'm not a miracle worker. I mean, there are people that maybe aren't raving fans because something didn't go as planned. Because once again, I'm not perfect, but anything within my power that I can control, I'm going to control, and make sure that we live up to what we can promise. And if someone says, "Hey, I want to do it in 10 days," we can't. I'm not going to say we can. It's just not physically possible because of this or that. But then again, I think people, if you tell it to them, although they don't want to hear it, it's almost like, okay, so you can do 20, so you kind of compromise somewhere in between. But I think once again, just being upfront with people, setting the expectations in the beginning and just making sure that everyone's on the same page and being transparent. And if there is an issue that comes up in the middle, explain it to them. Listen, there's a problem. This is not going to happen on time because of this or that. And if it's your fault, take the blame. I mean, sometimes, people in this business don't want to live up to making a mistake. But I've always been a big believer, if you make a mistake, because we all do, we're all human. If someone on this cast says they've never made a mistake, then you know what? Call me, because I'd love to talk to you and figure it out. But we all make mistakes. And if you do make a mistake, I think, explain it to you and taking the blame for it, not saying, oh, well, this guy did something and this happened here. I think means a lot to people, because it's honesty and it's real, and people get that. Most people.
I totally believe what you're saying, and it's interesting because a lot of people will say that knowing your client is important. But over the years, I've heard John probably share this story a million times, saying how you've saved so many of his deals in the past by being able to refinance someone's car, like into a different kind of financing, so they can qualify for a loan.
That's the example we were joking about earlier, right?
Which is thinking outside the box and knowing what your client needs and knowing their whole financial situation so they can get what they want, which is that house. Right.
Mm-hmm. Let me take a step back and just share that. I'll share that example with you.
Sure.
Just to sort of give everybody the full picture. So I once had a client who was, trying to purchase some high-end house. It was a doctor or something. And I remember we were trying to get the loan commitment, and it was a few days before it was due. And it came up that he was, his debt to income ratio was just shy of being approved for the loan. And I was like, well, shit, Chris, what are we going to do? Like, I promised this guy we're going to get him the house. Like, I can't. And not only that, I was younger, and I was like, this is a big deal for me, and I can't have this fall apart. Yeah. And Chris was like, well, I'm looking at his, credit or whatever it was. And he was paying a lot for some fancy car. And the moral of the story is Chris took it a step further and literally helped the guy refinance his car so that his payments went down and his debt to income ratio was straightened out, right?
Yeah, that's thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I could actually, this is one of those cases I'll never forget. And I think he had just gotten the car, and it popped up, and it was like a very expensive car, and he had financed it for 3 years, which is fine. Some people, you want to pay it off fast. That's great. So, once again, I think it was a Porsche, if I recall correctly. I'm a car guy, and I probably don't forget stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was like an $1,800 payment that just came up. He's like, oh, I just bought a new car. I got a new job. I'm buying a house.
I didn't tell you that?
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? Getting married too, and the whole kit and boodle all in one. And it's like, oh wow, it's a big payment. It's a kind of card you get. I got this. So basically, as I said, he had financed it over 3 years, thinking that was a smarter move, lower interest rate, bigger payment. But what he didn't realize that it was gonna, kind of really hurt the purchase of the property he was looking at. So what we did was say, hey, listen, go back to the bank you got the car with, or another bank I think we had went to, and finance it over 72 months.
Yeah.
Get into the house, get adjusted. You're taking a lot on at once. Slow down a little, pump the brakes, so to say. And once again, that was a solution that we had put together, and it worked out. But kind of to tie into that story too, I think one thing that I think is big and that I kind of really like to kind of emphasize with people is just knowing guidelines, from my end, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously I'm in lending, you guys are in real estate, so it's a little bit different from what we're able to do and what you're not able to do. But knowing what your boundaries are is extremely important. Knowing you can do this or knowing you can do that, or knowing a program exists when someone else doesn't. It's not difficult, right? So there's thousands of people that do what I do, and they're good at what they do, just like me. But a lot of times what separates someone from someone else is just knowing the flexibility you have within the book of guidelines that basically all lenders have to abide by. Debt to incomes, second home requirements, investment requirements, primary residence requirements, stuff like that. Just having that being up to date on that knowledge, I think, is so important, because there's so many deals that come across where people are like, oh, Chase said we can't do this. What do you mean? Why? They said, because of this, because it's a 4-unit condo and 2 are rented. Okay, well, that's incorrect. You don't need a condo questionnaire when it's this situation. So just stuff like that. And that's not difficult for someone to study or figure out. It's just kind of, once again, it's the toolbox that we're given. It's just learning it. Some people choose not to. They just choose to do the job the way they know it and don't want to learn more. But the guidelines to me are something that, like I said, I really like to live by. That's more in today's day and age, right? Where back in 08 and 07 and 06, when things were a little different, you could get anything done back then. So it didn't matter. But with the newer age mortgages, just knowing what can be done and kind of working within the guidelines, I think is so important. And just having that knowledge is so valuable.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. Like you say it is working in the guidelines, and sort of what I hear is just asking better questions too of the client, right? Like that's one thing that we always talk about with our agents in our office. And I'm like, the thing that differentiates you as an agent who's doing 25 deals and the agent who does 250 deals is they ask better questions, right? They dig deeper with the client. Like, like in this situation, it's like, maybe it's asking better questions of the client, or maybe it's asking better questions of the different banks that you guys can issue loans through. But what I'm getting at is just digging deeper, right? I mean, a lot of agents, like if they're working with a prospect, they'd be like, all right, well, how long you've been looking, where do you want to end up, what towns, and like not really trying to problem solve. I think, not taking no for an answer and just digging deeper and asking, well, why, and and sort of creatively working through the program is helpful.
Well, the other thing too is that whenever I'm referring Chris, I'm always like, Chris will tell you from the first phone call if he can actually do it or not, right? So he won't waste your time or his time because he'll be brutally honest from the get, and he won't be like all those other lenders are like, I'll run the file, and at the 10th hour you find out you can't do it, right? So that's another way of being able to like work on what's actually doable and being very brutally honest from the get. So that way everybody's like, everything's up front. So it's like complete integrity through the whole process, which helps.
Yeah. No. And the questions, like John said earlier, are very important. A lot of people, they just ask the basics, right? Yeah. But ask more. What are you buying the home for? Who are you moving in with someone? Oh yeah, my parents. I had a deal the other day. Guy's buying a house, and it's not going to work. You only make X or Y. I said, why are you buying such a big house? I'm buying it for my parents, to live with my parents. I said, oh, okay. I said, do your parents work? No, they don't work. Okay. Well, do they make any money? Well, yeah, they're retired. They make, X and Y. So you're buying this property to live with your parents, but you don't want to put on the mortgages. He said, well, no, they don't make any money. I was like, well, stop. You just told me they make money. They on retirement. So just simple things like that, like just trying to uncover the common questions too. It's not like I'm asking the guy for, something that doesn't exist. It's just more.
That's a perfect example, right? A lot of people would be like, I can't ask a guy why he's buying such a big house. That's a lot of
my
people.
Business. Yeah.
I think the best way to say it is because you have so many opportunities and so many clients and so much exposure to all of these people, you're not afraid of asking a question that would scare that guy away, right? A newer mortgage banker might be like, oh, I don't want to ask that. Like he's going to feel like I'm confronting him. But you're like, dude, if I lose this guy, I'll be on, to my next client. Like I'm just trying to dig deeper so I can help this person.
Sure. The fear of losing, right? The fear of losing, in this job, every opportunity is, it's great. You got to value every opportunity. So the fear of losing an opportunity to help someone out. Yes, you're right. That kind of makes people get a little bit jaded on what they should be doing and overstepping the line, right? I don't want to offend him or hurt him and him call somebody else because he asked me all these questions. I don't want to answer all these questions. But once again, just being creative with the questions is really what it comes down to. And just doing it in a constructive manner, I think, is a way that helps as opposed to just being blunt about, hey, so what's this? What's that? Get a conversation going, talk as if like we're talking, bring it up in conversation.
Yeah. I think that's important too. It's just, I feel like, I know a lot of clients after I've referred them to you have commented that like, I felt like I was just talking with a friend after working with you, and it wasn't, it was more of a friendly relationship,
Yep. Mm-hmm. I want to take this a step back. You mentioned 2008 and guidelines. And I think that since 2018, I've been seeing like so many different ads or pop-ups saying, market's going to shift. Where do you see things going moving forward, especially with the rate changes and what's happening with the Fed?
I mean, from a real estate perspective, I definitely think things are going to continue to stay busy, as busy as they can be with inventory being low, I guess is kind of, the context of it, right? So I definitely think there's still a lot of demand out there for people that want to buy and want to get into a house. As far as like the future of values and where things are going, I, you know, personally, I don't think that things are overdone. I don't think we're going to have some sell off like we saw in 2008. I don't think that's what we're in store for, and I don't think that's what we're leading up to. I mean, I definitely think that inflation is rising. I mean, it's not rising; it's extremely high right now. So that's going to bring rates up, and I think the rates going up are artificially going to slow the market down a little bit, but it's not doing that yet, and that's not a bad thing, because in the 80s, when inflation was ripping and roaring,
Yep.
house prices were still going up. So once again, rates are rates, and it's going to definitely box some people out and scare some people out when they see a 5% because they haven't seen it in 4 or 5 years. It scares me, right? I saw it the other day. I quoted someone 5%. I was scared to say it. I was like, 5. They're like, what? And even on my calculator lately, I'm used to putting a 3 in there, and I'm like, no, it's 4.25. So like, just it's more mindset, right? You're used to doing something. You're used to hearing something. So I think the rates, like I said, I think it will box some people out. Some people that were kind of overstretching a little bit. It's going to kind of bring them down a little bit from what they can afford. And I do think that over time, as they rise and inflation gets in line, home prices will probably level out, and we'll see a small correction in some areas. But I don't think we're kind of setting up for anything that's like 2008. I mean, that was just a whole different story and a whole different makeup of how we got there, and what was really going on and what the underlying issues were.
Yeah.
But right now, I mean, there's so much money invested in, the U.S.'s real estate from all over the place. And so I think, to see something like a market crash, like I said, maybe small corrections here and there, but I don't think we're in for any type of crash. If that's kind of where you were going with the question, I don't know if that's
more or less like with trends, right? Like, so are you going to see, do you think that they're going to go up even closer to the 6s? Do you think it's going to stay within that range? What do you see happening? I guess I'm curious to know so much more about your industry, because on our side, it's like, it's a little bit more familiar, right? Like I wouldn't even know what 2008 looked like in terms, I know subprime was the reason why that occurred. And why we saw the market crash from there. I know now it's increasing because of the inflation to kind of curb it a little bit. But that did kind of ruin the economy in the 1980s because of when Nixon went off the gold standard. I'm just curious, do you see it trending upwards? Do you think there's a level that a threshold that it won't surpass beyond? How does that look like in your world?
Yeah, it's funny because since really January 3rd, rates every week have gone up.
Yeah.
So, and there's been little spots where you're like, oh, this is it. Like, they're going to level out here a little bit, because normally what rates do is they'll go through a cycle of shooting up, and then they'll kind of calm down a little bit and hang out there for a bit. We haven't seen that yet, really. Every week's been, aside from maybe 1 or 2, been really weeks where rates have risen, ultimately leading to a higher rate by the week after. So it's tough to say where they're going to stop. You know what I mean? Where's the level that's going to be kind of make the markets feel comfortable, or making inflation get back in line or stuff like that. So I personally think they're going to keep going. I think what's going to happen is they're going to rise, and eventually they're going to hit a spot, and then they'll fall back. I don't think they're going to fall back down to 3. Yeah. I'm just saying I think they're going to shoot up faster than anyone wants them to, and then eventually what's going to happen is there's going to be that kind of balance of where is the happy medium, what is it, and they'll fall a little bit and kind of try to find that balance. Yeah. Moving forward. But I always use the theory that rates love to take the elevator up, and they take the stairs down. So even if you get a couple good days, the rates are more likely to go up when the market's like this than go down. It's just what we're gonna have to go through. But I do think by the end of the year, if not by the end of summer, I mean, I think rates will be high 4s, low 5s.
Yeah.
So if a buyer is out there,
hear it. I mean.
Yeah. So
hate to be that guy.
Yeah.
But
so any buyer that's out there should be actually executing and actually moving forward on a deal, instead of being a looky-loo or a Nancy, because they're going to end up paying more in a few more months with the rates continually doing what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think if you have an opportunity to buy right now, and you're kind of selected your offer gets selected, um, I think and you're serious about it, move forward with it. I mean, I think home prices may continue to go up a little bit. Rates are definitely going to go up a little bit. So the home today that you like is going to be more expensive next year, whether it be because rates went up a lot, or because prices kept going up. But one of the two is going to continue to happen, which will continue to squeeze you more for that home that you can get today or could have got last week. So I do feel that if someone is looking and in the market, try to get on it sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
That's good.
Let's talk about how you got your way up to 3,000 transactions. I mean, like what changed between a year where you did 1,000 deals and a year where you did 3,000 deals? Like how did your team structure change? How did your lifestyle change? How did your work-life balance change? Like that sort of stuff. Like,
Sure.
because I think when we say 3,000 deals, I'm like, holy shit, this guy works 24 hours a day. He never sees his kids. I know you have 4 kids. He never sees his kids. He's probably not married, and I know all these things are not true, right? You're happily married. You got 4 kids. You have good work-life balance. So how does all that come into play?
So I mean, getting where we got to was definitely gradual, right? It definitely didn't happen overnight. Market conditions definitely magnified and helped get to where we got to, right? Just because rates dropping, but take you back even further before we were doing what we were doing. I mean, we've always been kind of climbing the ranks, right? So, and when I say we, I say me as a team, which is fairly new. I've always kind of done everything by myself, aside from having some processors and key people involved to kind of help internally process loans and get them closed.
Yeah.
But over time, what we've done is just, once again, previous business and just keeping a very, very clean CRM, something that you can go to when there's opportunities for clients to possibly refinance or just possibly touch base with them. Doing yearly calls to clients. This is once again, this is in a little bit of a slower environment, not what we just went through. These were stuff we did, calling everyone every couple months, or whether it be a year, whatever your relationship was with them, just touching them here and there as needed. That was something that I've always been big on. I haven't done it over the last 2 years because it's been so crazy and haven't had the time to do it. But that's something that we were doing as we were slowly kind of building and growing what we grew. I think about 4 or 5 years ago, I think, I added a production partner to my team, which is basically an assistant, but basically a vice president. I'm not going to call him assistant because assistant's not even a good word to use. The vice president, and basically what he's become is kind of like a transaction coordinator. So, my job is to go out, speak with everybody. His job is to then, once the deal comes in, just make sure that everything's in line, review the documents, and then just make sure that the transaction's moving as needed. And if it hits a block on the road, he's one to get me involved, so then we can kind of put our heads together and figure out what's going on. So over time, I've taken my one-man show with a processor or two to adding the production partner. I've also added someone else on my team who's another production partner or a junior loan officer. They all have been a huge help to kind of bringing on and helping support the numbers we do. But the numbers are a lot, but we're able to, we manage it. I do have time to myself. I mean, listen, the last 2 years, I wouldn't say I've had as much time as I'd like to myself, but I still spend time with my kids. I still drive them to school. I still do this. I still do that. I mean, there were some nights I was up late and worked late, but I'm a big believer in working from 8 to 5, cutting out from 5 to 7, and then working from like 7:30 to 11 o'clock at night. I like that night hour. I feel like you could get a lot done, at least from my end. Once again, my job's a little different than your role, but from a managing perspective, I've always thought I can never go to work tomorrow with unanswered emails from today.
Yeah.
So, that timeline from 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock is prime time for me.
Yeah.
Phone's really not ringing. So the distractions are at a minimal, and you're able to just kind of really get ahead of anything that you didn't get ahead of in the day and close the day out. So I'm a big believer in you got to close the day. You got to end the day. You got to close it out, and you got to answer everything you can. And if you physically can't do that, well, then you definitely need help as well. But having to close the day out is important, because to start tomorrow with today's problems is
it's not a good way to start.
You're behind already. Yeah. You're ready behind the gun, and it's gonna snowball into something, and kind of set you off. So that's one of my biggest beliefs, is just kind of making sure everything's closed out every day and moving on to the next.
Yeah.
But
I give you credit though, because to touch upon something you said before, is you said, of the close to 3,000 deals you did last year, you said you probably spoke to every single one of those people.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, in our business, is there's so many of these people, and not to name names, but Keller Williams, they're always like teaching these people, these agents that do no business, to build this team. And they end up building this team, and there's no real like rainmaker, right? Or the rainmaker, the team leader, doesn't really do much business themselves. And what you end up finding out is that there's 15 people on the team, and they all do a couple deals here and there, but the actual persons whose name, the team leader, they're not actually in the office, they're not in the trenches, they're not like pounding the pavement. And to hear that you're still actively involved in each of these files, at least from the get-go, or the initial conversations, is awesome. I think, and I think that's what creates those raving fans. Right.
What you said, I once again, not to sit here and say I'm a real estate expert, because I'm not when it comes to what you guys do, but I think there's a time and a place for a team. I think this all comes down to and I do see a lot of people create premature teams. And nothing against them, right? Maybe it's working. And if it is, I'm not insulting anyone. No, that's fine. But I feel that you're taking value away from yourself by bringing more people into the picture when you're not at a level where you need to be taking stuff from you. You know what I mean?
You're watering it down.
Yes, exactly. Meaning if you're doing 4 transactions a month, which is great, and you're going to bring on 2 more team members because you want to have more time, that's great. That's because you want more time. But if you can manage 6 or 8 and still have a good amount of time, a good balance, I think you should get there first before you go ahead and say, let's establish this team. Because I think you lose a little bit of value when you do it. I really do, because you're kind of giving your business up. You're taking a little bit of a smaller share when you're bringing people on, which is fine too, because you're giving them opportunity. But I feel that if you can still manage and do, what you can do and grow with yourself. I think starting a team prematurely, I don't know. I'm not a big believer in it. It took me a while to kind of come around the corner and realize that I can give a little bit up here, and I could give this guy this work, and he can help me here, and she can help me there. It took me a long time to let go and release. And once I did, it was great, and it works out very well once it's in place. But I also feel there's a time and a place for it. And you got to kind of earn your stripes, in my opinion. And yeah, I can kind of, I could sit here all day and talk about what I think, but I don't want to. I don't want to offend anyone who it's working for you. I really don't, but I definitely think there's a time and a place.
So how many people are on your team today? Like just your team, and not just like, I do this, I help everybody at NJ Lenders. How many people are specifically on your team?
That's a good question.
Roughly.
Like probably 7 to 8.
7 to 8. Okay. And they all play a different role in the process?
They do, for the most part. So basically you've got me, who takes everything in, talks to everybody, quotes the deal, kind of sells it, let's just say, quotes the price, and locks the rate. From that point forward, then I've got loan officer assistants who will review the paperwork they sent in, make sure everything's in place, make sure everything adds up from a numbers perspective. And if not, go back to them and say, hey, listen, you left your W-2 out, you left your pay stub out. And they'll do that within 24 hours. Because in my opinion, if someone opens a filing cabinet to pull their W-2s and pay stubs and tax returns, they want to do it once. They don't want to do it 6 times. It sucks. No one wants to continue to go back and look for stuff. So we try to get as much as we can in the beginning and review it as fast as possible. Once that happens and that's all checked off, we then send it over to processing. And processing prepares it for underwriting. And then once underwriting gets it, approves it, processing, reviews it, schedules closing, and kind of moves on to the next steps. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some pieces in between or bumps that happen in between, appraisals, stuff like that, that obviously does, it doesn't sound, it's not as smooth as it sometimes is, but that's basically the process internally. That's how my team's set up.
Yeah. So if there's bumps in the road, you get back involved? Like, well, let me ask this way. If it's a smooth transaction, the person's got, traditional pay stub income and there's not a lot of questions asked and the property's pretty straightforward, is it fair to say that you don't necessarily have to get back involved? It's just a straightforward deal?
Yeah. There's many times that, I'll have that initial conversation, kind of set the tone and set the lines up so they're prepared and understand what's going to happen next, introduce who's going to kind of take over from that stage. And yeah, I mean, there'll be times that, hey, I'll get you on the phone and I'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, I wonder if John's client, Jones closed. And sure enough, I'll ask you and you say, yeah, closed 3 weeks ago. Nothing, it was, smooth as can be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there are many times that will happen, especially once again, with this amount of files we're handling it does
It's
happen.
like 15 files a day when you think about it. It's overwhelming.
Yeah. And I would say, like, just because a lot of the people who, we interact with and we mastermind with are focused on building a team. Maybe it's not necessarily like a mortgage banking team, but more like a real estate team.
Yep.
Are you actively involved in interviewing those team members, or those people that like you've recruited or you've interviewed or you've trained them? Or is that people who sort of, NJ Lenders helps you out with that? Like, how does that all work? Like, how have
Sure,
you
so I
built
guess
this team?
Yeah, no, it's a great question because I've had some people come and go, but from I guess a production partner or close assistant level, I was lucky enough to actually get someone who had been trained by one of the owners of the company, who's a producing loan officer. He had 2 production partners, the owner of the company. This was one of his second guys, like his, second man on the totem pole, and he had a top guy. And the second man on the totem pole wanted to start working from home. And the owner said, no, you got to work in the office. That's it. End of story. I said, all right, well, I'm probably going to quit. And he said, all right, if you want to quit. So he actually called me and he said, would you be okay if I worked for you from home? And I said, is the owner of the company, Steve, is he okay with it? He said, yeah, he's okay with it. So I kind of got someone that was
You're like, I work from home.
Yeah. They say, this is perfect.
Yeah.
So I don't have to come to the office to see you? Great.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like he was homegrown. He was grown already. He was kind of manicured already. He was ready to go. He wasn't up to where we are now, but he had the knowledge. So brought him on, and we kind of just figured each other out pretty quickly. The way he worked, the way I worked, and within a couple months, we kind of had a good synergy going. It worked out. Prior to him, I had a couple people I had interviewed, talked to, thought would work out, and it didn't really work out. I'm not a great interviewer, so when I interview people, I tend to try to sell them.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I'm trying to sell you on wanting to work for me. You're applying for a job to work with me. So,
Yeah.
But I always find myself like, oh, it's the best role. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah. And I'm like, why? So I figured out that people helping has always helped me better just from my personality. So that's the one guy. And then I brought my brother on recently, and we kind of all trained him and made that work. So that's kind of worked out. So those are kind of my 2 core guys right now. And then I have another guy below them who similar situation, brought him on, younger guy, and just kind of, he's learning the ropes. But when you're doing as much as we do, it's been easy to train someone quickly.
Yeah.
Because the experience, you get the experience by working in the transaction and working in the trenches. So it's been a good 2 years to kind of train someone.
Yeah.
Not the best 2 years to train someone because you need people that are trained, but then again, you're able to learn quickly because of experience and what's going on and just being involved with stuff.
Yeah.
That's good.
Cool.
I have 2 questions. How do you work from home with 4 kids? And how does that even work for you?
Yeah. So
And
I guess,
how do you create that schedule too?
Yeah,
right?
for real.
Because I'm the kind of guy where if I'm working from home, I just hijacked that question. If I'm working from home, I get distracted throughout the day, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you have a schedule, and how do you get the family to stay, out of the office, before 5 o'clock. And
Well, you can see in his door over there, he has a latch that forces
Yeah,
it closed.
exactly.
You lock yourself
There's
in.
a fire chamber. It's just you fall into it if you open the door.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So 10 years ago, I know it was 10 years ago because when my son was first born. My second son was born. I was working like, I don't know, an hour away from home at a place down in Manalapan, New Jersey, which is far from my house. And he was born. I was like, I'm going to go work from home while he's born. He's my second son. Help out a little bit and work from home. Yeah, just figure it out for a little bit. Then I'll come back to the office. And at the time, how my house was set up, I had a bedroom. And then off my bedroom was like another room. And as a realtor, it wasn't a room because it was off of another room.
Yeah.
But you had to get through a bedroom to get to it. So
I've been known to call those rooms. That's a bedroom.
All right. Well, you guys know better than I. But you had to go through the bedroom to get to it. So it was kind of like
A railroad.
Yeah, it was kind of good because you can really you were kind of really separated from even people being upstairs because you have to go through the bedroom into this room and then you're in this room. So it was a cool little setup that I had. And once again, I was able to kind of exclude myself and work from home and figure it out that way. And then I had more kids and we moved to a different home and I didn't have that set up anymore. So I have an office that's literally on the first floor of my house. So it is somewhat, there can be distractions throughout the day. I mean, my kids go to school. They weren't last year, but they go to school now. So from like 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, there's no distractions at all.
Yep.
3 in the afternoon to sometimes 5 o'clock, you will get an occasional distraction. My son plays piano. He plays a trumpet. My daughter plays a violin. So today's one of those days where they're not playing any of those, so you're not hearing them. Yeah. But I did a podcast like a few months ago, and it was Trumpet Day. Yeah. The guy's like, "Is that a trumpet?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's a trumpet. That's me working from home. So like, you either get it or you don't get it. Like this is it." But yeah, I mean, there are distractions. But as you know, in this business too, this business does give you a level of flexibility throughout the day where you may work 10 hours a day, but from 2 to 4, you've got nothing going on.
Right.
So there's a level of like, this job really doesn't have set hours.
Yeah.
You may make your set hours and come in at really early and do your stuff, but then again, you could also make your set hours a little later so you can adapt to the family time then. Or like I said, I cut out at 5:30, spend time with my family till 7:30, and then come back to the office for most days. So I think it's just more, just discipline, just disciplining yourself and trying not to. You're right, but some people are distracted, and some people can't do it. I don't think it's for everybody, but I think the discipline is the big thing. And when the days that are a little quiet, I do tend to find myself strolling out of the office and kind of like moozing around, like what's going on, getting other people's business to see, because at the end of the day, you get a little lonely working by yourself in your office. But the distractions for me in an office are far greater than distractions at home.
I think that's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say people get distracted, and going in the office. So
yeah, I think the biggest distraction anybody who's experiencing growth, especially at your level, is complacency. Yeah, like, that's the biggest distraction that comes to play. And with 15 new people coming in your business every single day, 3,000 in a year, over $1 billion in sales, number one in the state. How do you fight complacency?
I mean, it's tough, and it's really tough because the biggest hurdle I think I face is the business isn't consistent. So like what we just went through is not it's not normal. So like just trying to adjust to every day is really. That's part of the battle. I think is just figuring out what you're in for. Like I said, the last 2 years have been crazy, but they happened like that. Yeah. And you had to adapt. You had to just kind of, if you wanted it, you had to do it. If you didn't want it, shit, do what you want to do. Flake out, do this, do that, don't adjust. But I think it just came down to seizing the moment, at the time, and just really, really hunkering down and adjusting to what was there and because the more you feed it, the more it was growing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this business is similar to that. The more you feed it, the more you want to put into it and kind of really, really, once again, feed it. I always call it a snowball. It's a snowball. It's like making a snowman. You make a little snowball, you roll it down the hill, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's a similar scenario. Is the more you want to feed it is is, and that's, I always want to feed the snowball. So
I think the analogy we've
I
talked
make
about is
adjustments.
the hungry hippo thing too, right?
Yeah,
Like,
the
you're like,
hungry
dude,
hippo, exactly.
I'm just trying to take as many as I possibly can, right?
That
And
sounds
you're gonna
it.
drop
That's-
3 of them, but you might pick up 4, right?
Yep.
That's it. But you got to just keep going. You got to put your blinders on. You can't be distracted. And once again, I think discipline. If you could discipline yourself to work, to put the time in, and kind of put your system in place that works for you.
Yeah.
I think that alone is gonna do it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I think one of the things I think we've talked about, like just personally over the years, is like just pushing yourself to do more, and I think figuring out a way. And I think one of the examples you gave me, or I don't know, it just come up in conversation between us, is like, you might go out and say, hey, I'm going to sign up for this car that I've always wanted, right? And the payment on the, per month is a scary payment. And you're like, that is probably more than what I should spend, but I
Sure.
want the freaking car. So I'm going to get the car, I'm going to sign up for it, and then I'm going to figure it out, right? So like, was that sort of always been your philosophy? Like,
To a degree, right? Because I guess you could take what you just
I'm
said.
saying
and be
within
like,
reason,
"Oh,
within
God,
reason,
yeah,
within
yeah.
reason,
This guy's an idiot.
right? No,
But,
I mean,
yeah, no. But no, you're right. So it's kind of slowly setting goals financially that maybe you're like, it's a little much. Maybe I shouldn't do that, or not being conservative on every approach, right? Being a little more bullish and say, you know what, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna buy the house that's $100,000 more, because you know what, I want it all. I want to push a little harder, and it's gonna make me push a little harder. So yes, little things like that. Kind of just pushing in different areas for something that maybe is a little overreach, and maybe you say, you know what, I don't need it, but I'm going to push for it because it's going to drive me, has always driven me. So yes, you are right to say that, stuff like that drives me, and it makes you want to work harder, because you want to either pay it off or whatever you want to do to kind of get to the end game of what you've taken on. But it's kind of a commitment you make to yourself. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it happen.
It's also the
just
exposure
kinda like-
too.
what's
you know?
that?
It's also the exposure too. So it's like you get what you wanted, and you get tired of it in a month, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, I want something even better. So you want to be even bigger and better from there.
Continue to set the bar. I mean, they always say, like, there's always these theories, you are who you hang out with and stuff like that,
Right.
right? So you could kind of maybe use that in the same type of way that I look at this. So if you set the bar for yourself, and you say, oh, I want this car, it's a little much, I shouldn't buy it. But if you get it, you're pushing yourself. Almost like you're hanging out with these people that are all making money, and you're not making money because you're not pushing yourself. Well, why the fuck are you hanging out? Go hang out with the guys that aren't making money then. Like, you want to be
Yeah.
around, you want to surround yourself with success.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, once again, go buy a Bentley if you can't afford a Bentley, but I'm saying if you were going to buy, the 5 Series, well, maybe look for the next step in the 5 Series, the 5 Series M or something like that. Just to set the bar a little higher for yourself and feel like you're working towards it, you're pushing harder to get that, and like I said, motivate you just to kind of continue to keep it. Because if you don't, if you fail and you got to sell it, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
So you got to work hard to keep it. So it's going to push it, in my opinion. Like
Yeah.
I said, someone may look at this like, this guy's stupid. He doesn't think financially. But
Nah.
in my opinion, what you're saying is right. I mean, you set the bar a little higher, and it's either you're going to do it or you're going to fail.
Yeah.
I don't want to fail. So
You
I'm
put your
gonna
back up against the wall, and you start
Exactly.
saying, you might start saying, like in our business, it was like, all right, I know how to do 5 deals a month, right? I've been able to do that, right? And I want to sign up for this car or this house or whatever, fancy thing that drives you. And you start saying, all right, well, I know I can do 5 deals a month. And in order to get that and have that lifestyle, I need to do 10 deals a month. So you sign up for the 10 deals a month, right? And then you say, oh shit, it's almost like putting your back up against the wall. Like we said, how am I going to do 10 deals a month? And then all of a sudden you find yourself saying, holy shit, I did 11 deals last month, right? And you start saying, well, how can I do 15? And how can I do 20? And those things come from, it's the result of being able to double your business and triple your business. So I don't, look at it as like doing something foolish. I do it as
Sure.
finding a way to figure it out.
And with what you just said is a numbers game too, right? So you're doing 4 deals a month, 5 deals a month. That's great, and you're living, you're happy, but you're only touching 4 or 5 people a month. If you're touching 15 a day, 20 a day, 300 a month, 400 a month, that continues to churn. So those 400 people, maybe 20 of them are going to refer you. Okay, well that's 20. You know, there's a numbers game you could play here, but the bottom line is the more people you're touching is the more opportunities you're creating for yourself. Just like in real estate, the more doors you knock, the more people you talk to. It's just continuing to grow that way. So I'm a big believer in that too, where people are like, oh, you know, Chris, I have $100,000 deal for you. You probably don't want it, right? I'm like, no, I'll take it.
Well, see, that's something that I've always found interesting. I'm like, you know, because like realtors, right? A lot of times people are like, how do I get up into the $1 million bracket? And like all they want to do is the sexy stuff, right? Like I only want to sell $1 million homes and the fancy homes, and like, you know, you've been able to help me out of a lot of $200,000 and $300,000 not so sexy deals, and you know, but I think it's you know, you're always willing to take on the challenging ones, right?
Yeah, I mean, once again, I think it's exposure. Every deal you do is exposing you. Now, the owner of the company, Steve, once again told me a story back in 1991 or something like that. He met a little old lady in downtown Tenafly for a $60,000 deal, and he was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. This is so annoying. She wound up being his biggest referral for like the course of 3 years.
Yeah.
She had a brother who was an accountant, and then his brother was a CPA, and this guy just fed him business for 3 years straight. And he was like, here I was, I had to go meet this lady in person for a $70,000 deal. He was basically going to make what it cost him to get there.
Yeah.
But he's like, you know what, I felt obligated, and I went, and it worked out to, so something like I said, so I don't look at it, I don't look at it from a numbers perspective. I mean,
it's a relationship.
It's all about, and it's just about, then that deal could turn into something bigger, and you know, just somehow or another you meet a realtor on the other end, and the other realtor's like, oh, you know, that was great, that transaction, can I send you a transaction? So it's just the exposure of just being a part of it, and I think it does a lot.
And you know, one of the things I found interesting and about just conversations with you over the years is like, you were telling me that you got into some circles and you were able to sort of like get your name out there a little bit more. I remember you gave me an example of like you did a refi for a police officer and you ended up getting on like the whole police department, right? Like I remember we were joking about some cop one day and you're like, yeah, I think I refied that entire police department. Yeah. So was that strategic, or is it just happened that you did right by one guy? And again, it goes back to that raving fans thing.
Yeah, it wasn't strategic until it became strategic, right? So I didn't know that was kind of like a thing, but I realized after, you know, once again, helping one individual, and he referred me another and referred me another, I realized like, wait, hold on, there's something here. Like the once again, this using the police officers as an example, all these guys are basically brothers. It's a brotherhood. They're all sticking together. They don't mind talking about their finances with their partner. Yeah. The partner doesn't mind talking about it because they're all similar wages, similar situations, and they all kind of think alike, and they're spending 8 hours a day with each other in a car. So I realized that after helping one or two of them, and obviously, you know, doing right by them, and they were like, oh, call this guy, and it kind of snowballed, and I realized, wow, this is amazing, and it went from one department to another department, which is still kind of jingling around in different areas, but yeah, I mean, I think there was one department that we did like 75 of the police officers.
Wow.
There's like 100 of them total. So I think the other 25 didn't have mortgages, so it was like, all right, it's done. But it was almost one of those things where they were like, I was told I have to call you. I don't know why I'm calling you, but I told that you got this and I can get this, and I'm like, yeah.
See, but that's interesting. So that's insane. Cop, right, or I should say police officer, right? That police officer called Chris, right?
Yep.
But see, one thing I'll give you credit for too is like, you're not the kind of guy where like you call me and you're like, John, who are some other realtors you can introduce me to?
Yep.
Like you don't really ask for it, right? You just do right by people and then they come back. It comes back to you. So like, was there ever a time when you were going through those police officers and working that network where you're like, who else can I meet with? Or for you, has it always just been do right by them and it will come back naturally?
It's always been the do right by them. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there have been times that say, you know, hey, you guys we have a meeting. Oh, can I come to the meeting or something like that? You know, I would always be trying to think of stuff like that. But for the most part, I think my biggest value was just, you know, doing right by them and making sure that they were getting the best deal. but making sure that someone out there wasn't going to say, well, I could do better than Chris. You know, not saying it didn't happen from time to time, but then again, you know, those are the cases where I would maybe look at it and say, you know what, I'll take half commission. I'll take a quarter commission just to keep this circle going and kind of do right by this group of people. And that's kind of one of the biggest, you know, one of the things that I can tell you, one of the drawbacks I've had, one of the biggest things forms of success has been getting involved with groups like that and different people like that.
Awesome. Just the competitive, as we wind this down, the competitive side of me has just a quick question for you. I mean, do you guys keep an eye on that? Because I mean, dude, you're number 3 in the country or top 5 in the country, right? I mean, that to me, like, and just because you and I have been working together for 15 plus years, right? So just to see how much you've grown is awesome. But like, do you guys keep an eye on that list? Because if that were me up there, I'd be like, all right, first of all, what's number 1 and number 2 doing that I'm not doing?
Yep.
And secondly, I'd be like, holy shit, these people are on my tail.
Yep.
You know, are you looking at that throughout the year and trying to strategize? Or are you just like, holy shit, one day we woke up and we're up there?
I'll be honest with you, I've never been a guy to follow my numbers. Never, ever watched where I am mid-year. Why are my numbers down this quarter? Why were they up last quarter? Never, ever gotten obsessed with it. And that's one of the blinders theory. Just keep your blinders on.
Yeah.
It's busy. Things are working out. You know what I mean? The phones are ringing. I'm not going to complain. There are times where I'll question, like, shit, it's a little slow. It's quiet. Why is it slow? But if I start getting that stuff in my head, it's only going to it's just going to poison you. And you don't need that. I mean, listen, it'd be great to be number 1 and stay on top and all that stuff. But you know what? At the end of the day, I just want to stay busy. I want to continue to do what I'm doing. But the numbers don't do anything for me, right? I could be number 60 or 500 on that list. And I just want to continue to kind of crank it out. That's all. Just do the best you can. I mean, but I've never been too competitive. I mean, obviously now being number 3 or 2, whatever 4, whatever number is going to be this year, you know, it does kind of get in your head a little bit if you stop and think about it. And I just tried not to as hard as possible because it could really, really poison you, man. It really could. I mean, look at anyone in a high level position. Celebrities, look at athletes. Great example. I mean, you could look at a couple core athletes that were number 1 and stayed number 1. Michael Jordan. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, but then again, you can look at other athletes that were on the top of their reign and all of a sudden, you know, fell apart. You know, Lance Armstrong was great cyclist. All of a sudden, he's doing steroids. Oh shit, no one ever heard him again. Right? He's gone. I mean, it's just so. Like I said, I think I try to stay away from that. Really.
Ego is what can poison it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, we really appreciate you spending so much time with us. I think a lot of people really find this valuable, you know, even if they're not specifically working in the mortgage industry, just on how you built it and how you've been able to maintain it and grow it. And are you able to just share your information real quick, like your email and the best number to reach you at, just in case anybody wants to reach out, whether it's for a loan or just to network?
Sure. So come by and say where I work. I work at New Jersey Lenders. That would have helped, right?
Represented there,
and my email is pretty simple. It's CJ, so CJ Gallo. So C is in Charlie, J is in John, G is in Green, A is in Apple, L is in Larry, O is in Octopus at NJ, like New Jersey, lenders.com. Awesome. And my phone number is 201-522-5944.
Awesome.
Well,
Chris,
but
thanks
if you really
again,
need my information, you should reach out to John. John will give it to you.
We'll include all of Chris's information down below, and you know, you can reach out to him if you need anything for financing needs or just networking needs. And again, Chris, we really appreciate you joining us today, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Chris.
I appreciate it, man. Have a good one, guys.
Awesome. Take care. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.